I was editing a vlog and then it suddenly finished the footage for that day, and I was partway through a story about that day's walk, and then I was looking to see if I filmed later in that day to finish off the story, and I did think it was doubtful because it was a Friday. And if you have watched that video, which should be the video before this, if I use this footage, I may not use this footage. Sometimes I film and I don't use the footage at all, I just don't upload it. I think sometimes I film just to say whatever is on my mind, and depending on where it's going to go actually. But for the YouTube channel that I'm talking about, obviously that's a public channel, and for certain reasons I don't post that much on there, especially things that I don't want some people to know, and then I post other stuff elsewhere, like private profiles. And I'm so glad that I've got these private accounts where I know who's following me, because I can just say everything I want, really, without, without having to think about what I'm saying or like editing or having to leave stuff out. Because if you know me really well, you know that I just talk and talk and talk, and there's like no kind of, but it's like I've got no, like, what's the word? I can't even think what the word is, I'm so tired. But I have no filter, that's it. So like on other places, like, I know some of you do follow me on there, because the people that have followed me the longest have always known about other places and were following me when they were still public. But I'm glad that I made them private a few years ago, because then I have my little safe places to talk freely. But when on Fridays, as you know, like, it's very stressful anyway, and like I have to swap cars with my dad, because even though I've parked in the same place for many years, and we have to swap cars, and then my dad's inconvenienced and it's stressing my dad out, and he's got a heart condition, so there's a lot of pressure being put on my dad and me. So, and then I'm rushing around on Fridays because I don't have a massive amount of time. Like, if I could drive off the street in my own car and not have to swap cars around with my dad and he leave his, then I would have more time to go shopping. So it's kind of a mad rush to do the shopping. Then I have to go and pick my dad up and bring him home. Then I have to bring the shopping in. I have to put the chilled stuff away and any frozen stuff away. Then I'll typically get ready. Sometimes I don't change my clothes. The majority of the time I do. Depends on what I'm wearing when I go shopping and the weather. If it's like humid or it's gotten warmer as the day's gone on, the morning, early afternoon, then I will get changed. But there's a few times where I've literally kept the jeans and t-shirt on that I've gone shopping in and just put on like the trainers that I walk the dog in. Then I obviously have to pack my bag, I have to get the drinks ready. Sometimes I think get the drinks ready before I go shopping, but I have lots to do before I go shopping on a Friday morning, and I always forget, because it would save me a couple of minutes if I did have the drinks ready. So then I'll typically walk the dog. There's been a few occasions where my dad dropped me off somewhere, and that's also dependent on his movements, because obviously when he leaves here, he doesn't always come back on a Friday. There's been a couple of Fridays where he's gone and picked me lunch up and he's come back and I've eaten it whilst he's been here and we've left together. But there's been occasions where I've had breakfast instead of lunch from somewhere, so then I don't need my lunch, so then he's not coming back. I think there was one week where he went somewhere and picked something up, and literally I was running around the house, I was unpacking the children's frozen stuff, putting it away. I had to get changed quickly because I did get changed that day. I had to run down the stairs, get the water, and just as I'd like finished, he literally pulled up, but I was literally running around like an absolute idiot, and that meant I got dropped off somewhere, which meant I was able to walk longer. Obviously, me walking from the house doesn't shorten the walk, but if he can give me a lift somewhere where I can walk off-road, then we have a better walk. Obviously, I can walk to places that I can walk off-road, but like some of them are like an half an hour walk, some are more. Some are like such a short off-road walk, like, you know, it's not major, because obviously we've not been able to drive my car like I should be able to do. We're having issues, and like, because if you know, I used to drive off the street to do some of the walks, and I used to drive to various places. I'm unable to do that, which is not by choice. Obviously not going to talk about why. If you follow me on private, like, social medias, and by the way, when I say social medias, it's just because I'm purely not going to say which medias they are, and I don't accept requests anyway anymore, because I don't want anyone that would want to watch me for the wrong reasons to get accepted to watch, like, have access to my other social medias. So that's why I don't say where they are. And obviously, if you know, I don't use my name on social media. Like, I have aliases, or whatever they're called. So yeah, I used to drive to certain places. Some of those places I've not been to since not being able to drive my car like I should be able to do. So I have to walk everywhere, and we've actually discovered, because the dog's very inquisitive, we have discovered some places that I didn't necessarily know they were there, or I knew there was something there, but I never went that way because I didn't quite know what was there. So because the dog's very like mindful, well, the dog's very determined, she's like, we're going this way, and there's times where I'm like, no we're not, no we're not, no we're not. Or like if like I've only got a set amount of time and I don't want to like go in one direction and then find out it doesn't take me anywhere, or I have to double back and then that takes up more time. Sometimes I'm like, no, we're not going that way. But if there's time for a potential turnaround where I can't get anywhere from wherever she's took me, then I'll go that way. And I have spoken about this before, and we have discovered quite a few little places. Some of it's to do with her and like, I want to go this way, and I'm like, no, and eventually I'll be like, yeah. And then there's somewhere I've been like, oh, I wonder what's down there, or I wonder what's over there. So I have found some areas by just walking and doing a little bit of exploring. And if I've got the time to doing it, a little bit of exploring, then I do it. But obviously it all has to do with how long I've got for the walk, what time did I get out, because sometimes I struggle to get out because I'm scared to leave my house and I'm super anxious, and then I have to work myself up to it. And sometimes I don't get out as soon as I'd like to, and then I'm like, oh god, I've only got an hour and 20. So then I don't want to mess around too much. But we have discovered some quite good places actually. And there's places that you wouldn't expect to find that I've found, that if I wasn't inquisitive and the dog wasn't determined, I wouldn't have found. And we just keep finding these little areas where you can go off road, and sometimes like it's only off road for like 5 minutes, or some are longer. But I love the fact that we're finding little things that you wouldn't know they were there unless you lived close by, or you just walked around and explored a little bit. So we have found some little bits and pieces of places to go. And there was one that I always knew of, but I never went to. And a few people who I'd like bump into on walks would be like, have you ever been to such and such? I'm like, no. I'm like, is it like big? Someone once told me it was massive and you could spend hours in this place. It's not true, because I've been in there quite often, because the dog is very determined. In fact, we were walking very close to this place, and I didn't realise you could get in the way that we've ended up starting to go in. And we were just walking across something to get to somewhere else, because the dog dragged me down somewhere one day, and it ended up being like this off-road area that led to another place that led to a road that we know. And then one day she's like, no, I want to go across this thing instead of going to the road. And I'm like, I wonder what's over there. And I walked over, and it's this place that I've known about for years, but I never went in because I felt like it wasn't that big. And it isn't that big, but you could probably spend like 20-30 minutes in there if you wanted to. And we're typically in there like 10 minutes. Because to be in there like 20 minutes, you probably have to like do a big circle or do a few little things. But we go in one way and come out another way. And then we've since discovered there's another way out, which is actually preferred by me personally. So now she takes me out that way. So it was her determination that got us off on a different bit that led to a different bit that led to now this bit. And then I've discovered that there's the main routing that I always knew about but I've never used. And there's another way in that we go out of, and there's two ways in, one of them that we go in. I hope that made sense. So it's basically the dog's determination. And then there's someone that we bump into. And it's funny because when we actually started to bump into this person, I didn't realise how close to where I live they actually live, and they've got two dogs. And I was actually bumping into them miles away. We weren't seeing them that often. Sometimes we'd see them, and this is when I was able to drive my car freely, and sometimes we'd see them, and then we wouldn't see them for like a month or whatever, then we would see them. So we didn't see them that often, but then sometimes we were seeing them every week. And then I've not really been to where we used to bump into them since. I've been a few times since I've been unable to use my car as often as I want to. I've been a couple of times, but I've not been for a while. But I actually started to bump into them very close to where they live, because they told me where they lived. But I thought they lived at a totally different end. So when I bumped into them, well, I keep bumping into them on the road. I don't know if it's called a road, but it leads to where they live. So do you know, like when you, like, say you're walking down a main road, and like obviously there's side streets and stuff, it's kind of one of those situations, but it's not a main road, it's just a street that leads to a street kind of thing. And I kept bumping into them, and then one day they walked off this street, and we were walking along, and I was like, oh, do you live on there? And they went, yeah. I was like, that's funny, because before I moved to this house, I was actually hoping to get a house on that particular street, but nothing ever really came up. And I used to like look at the houses because I like the name of the street. I know that's random. And I used to just look at the houses, you know, like one day I might live in one of those houses. And I was like, it's really ironic that you live on that street, because I really liked the name of the street and I was really drawn to that street. And I said, nothing really came up. I said, but it's a really nice street because I know the street and I know the area. It's a really nice area. And we would bump into them around once a week. But since we've started finding other routes and other places to go, we don't see them that often. And it's funny because I will bump into them at the most random time, not anywhere near their street, because we do some, like, we go down some of the streets and routes that they do, but we don't do the same walks that they do, which is really weird. It's really ironic. that sometimes you'll be like, you'll go down one like road or something, and you can go left, right, or straight on wherever you want to go, and like they might go left and we might go right, but we go down some of the similar places, but we just don't do the same routes. And one of the days I bumped into them, it was like not long before the summer holidays, and I needed to be back on the street by 10 to 3 at the latest for safety reasons. And I was like, I think I was about 30 minutes from home, and I think it was something like 20 past 2, and I'd gotten out a bit later than normal. And they were like, I'd invite you on the walk, but you don't have the right footwear. It's a bit muddy. And I had my older trainers on. I was like, well, it probably wouldn't bother me today with these trainers on, but I don't have the time to come with you. And they know the reasons why I need to get back. I said, I've got to be back at 10 to 3 by the latest. Because I was like over halfway through my walk with the dog, like 2/3 of the way through the walk. I said, like, how long is it going to be to get back to this point of the walk? And they were like, oh, it's at least an hour. And I said, if like it was an hour earlier than it is now, I'd come and do that walk with you. I said, but I need to be back, and like the maximum time I've got is 40 minutes. I said, and I'm about 25 to 30 minutes from home. The most I could do with you is 10 minutes, and I'd have to like turn back. I said, it's a bit pointless. I said, but next time I bump into you, if you're going that route and I've got my older trainers on, or it's not going to be muddy at all, then I'll definitely join you. But every time I've bumped into them since, it's not been where they're going to do that route. There was one day that they were coming up somewhere and I was going down it, and they were literally heading home, which was like 15 minutes away, and I was heading away from where they live. And the last time I actually saw them was about 2 weeks ago. I was walking off the street that they was walking on the street that leads to their street, but they were like on the opposite end of the street that leads to their street, if that makes sense. And I was about to walk off it, and they were walking towards me, and they said hello, but they were actually on the phone, but I didn't realise they were saying hello to the person on the phone, and I shouted hello to them, because they weren't like close enough for me to actually say it and them hear it. And then as they walked towards me, they were like, oh, I can't stop and talk, I'm just on the phone to the hospital. And then they basically said that the person that they were married to had like broken some, I'm not going to say what in case someone's watching this that knows them. And then they were like, oh, we'll chat soon, and off they went. And I've not seen them since then. But like I said, I don't always bump into them, but then there's some times where I'll bump into them twice in a week. But because I've started to discover new routes and stuff, I probably only go close to the street maybe twice a week. And obviously they're not necessarily going to be going out as I'm passing, so it just depends. But my dog loves their dogs, and she walks along nicely with them. But when we've been off road with them and they're off the leads, she's a nightmare, because she wants to be off the lead and she wants to run around with them, but she can't because she's a husky. You can't let huskies off the lead, and that's one of the things that I dislike the most about having a husky, is I feel sorry for them because they can't get off and have a run, and they probably don't understand why they're not allowed to get off and run, but they don't come back. Even the best trained huskies don't come back. So I'm always glad that we bump into them where we're not off road, because then she can have a little play and a little walk with them, but then doesn't try to run away because they're on their leads. But to conclude where this was meant to go with this video, I edited the video about when it was like a food shop Friday, and I was like walking, and I was talking about that day's walk, because I think earlier in the video I was talking about the previous weeks, and we ended up on this route that wasn't planned because the dog was very determined and she got spooked, and I ended up rushing like an idiot to meet my dad because the length of walk wasn't planned, and I just about made it back in time. But this particular day that I'm filming on, I had planned to do the same walk again, but the dog decided to do a different route which is slightly longer. So when I got to a certain point, I realised that I didn't have enough time to do that route and get to where I meet my dad in time, and I have to meet him by that time, otherwise I would have to wait about 40 minutes for him to be able to come and pick me up. So I only get 2 chances basically, but I have to meet him on the first time unless it's been arranged. Like if I've gotten out later, which I have done a couple of times, if I get out later then he will pick me up 40 minutes after that time because he goes and does something, and then 40 minutes later I get a lift on. But that day we'd arranged to meet at that time, so it became obvious that when I had about 10-15 minutes left to get to the point where I started heading in a different direction to come back, that I basically didn't have time to do it. The dog then doubled back instead of going the route that I thought she was going to go, and 5 minutes earlier she tried to take me up somewhere that we'd never been before, and I was like, we're not going up there because we're going this other route. So on the way back, after she turned round, she dragged me up there, and I was like, we're not going to walk far up there because we're going away from where we want to go. So we're walking up, and then we come across these steps, and there was 40 or more. I stopped counting at 38 because there was a dog and its owners coming from the right. So there could have been at least 50 steps. So we start going left, and as I said in the previous video, we're going up and up and up and up. But we're going in the opposite direction to the direction that we came. Say we came from the west, I would say we was, I don't know, I was heading kind of north, but almost not fully north, but not west, kind of in between west and north. But we were heading away, but it wasn't quite north, but it wasn't west either. So we weren't going back towards where we were going more north than anything. And we're going higher and higher. And because like I was very mindful of the time and the fact that we were going further away, I didn't fully take in the area, which, you know, the bits of memory I have of it was really beautiful because it's all trees and it was just a really nice area. But because I'm thinking, oh my god, we're going away from where we need to be, we're going to be late, like I need to turn around, or I need to find a way where we can drop back down to where we've come from. And that was going on in my mind, where I'm like thinking like we were going to have to turn around, or we need to come across somewhere where we can go back in the sort of direction that we've come, because I need to get back and get out of here and like go and meet my dad. So, you know, I'd not had much to drink that day. I was very tired, I was very stressed out, and the trees were getting taller and taller, and I suddenly got a little bit freaked out. I'm not gonna lie, like I started to feel a bit freaked out, and I think a lot of it was to do with the dehydration and like not enough sleep. Do you know when you've not had enough sleep and you're like, you've barely drank all day, like, you know, it's not a good combination. So I did start to get freaked out about the size of the trees, and I don't know why, but I think it was a lot to do with the dehydration and being stressed out and very tired. Because I was stressed out because I was going in the wrong bloody direction. But yeah, we just kept going higher, and like the dog's pulling, and I'm like out of breath like a lot of the time because it's like she's just dragging me, and we're going up and up and up. And I'm thinking, like, surely there's got to be a path that's going to suddenly start going down. Like, and yeah, you could go down without a path, but that's a bit more dangerous. I mean, some of the paths are just areas where, you know, where people have walked so much it's made a path in the ground. Like, if there was one of those, I did spot one, but I was like, that's going into a lot of hedges. I don't know if I want to do that one. And as I think I said in the video, on the right, I did start seeing big gaps in between the trees where there was nothing but sky. And I'm thinking there must be something like coming up on the right, because there's gaps between the trees all of a sudden, and then, you know, there's just sky, and I'm thinking, where does that come out? And one day I would like to actually know that. But obviously that day I didn't have time, and I knew the dog walkers were behind me. But there were times when I was walking, especially when I got freaked out about the size of the trees. I don't know what the hell was going on. I didn't realise they were still behind me because I looked behind me and I couldn't see anyone. But they were walking quite slowly. Because a bit further on, when the dog had stopped and she was sniffing for a little while, I turned round and I could see them. So I was very mindful that they were behind me, and I realised that they were definitely sticking to the path. So when we got to this bit and I could see it ahead, I could go left or right. As much as I was tempted to go right in hopes that it brought me out somewhere where I could work out where I was, I decided to go left last minute, and it took me down, but it took me down in the sort of direction that we came, but not quite in that direction. Do you know what I mean? Like, if we came from the west, like I said, it was like more to the west than the north, but it wasn't quite west, but it was still taking me down to the same area, and it was quite steep. And that's when I started to realise how high up I'd actually come, and it made it a bit difficult going downhill. But I started to feel a bit freaked out, thinking, am I lost? Now, I never normally think that, and I think a combination of the factors, thinking back, of like hardly any sleep, being stressed out, being dehydrated, I think it all like played a part in me starting to suddenly think I was lost, because all I could see was trees, and this very thin path that I think had been created just by people walking on it again and again and again. But I needed to drop down. I couldn't go up any higher because I needed to get back down. So we were going down, and it was quite steep actually. And then we eventually got to the bottom, and I was like, oh my god, so this is where this path leads to, because there's sometimes when I've been walking and she's been trying to drag me up this steep looking path, and I'm like, oh, we're not going to go up there, I don't know where it leads. Well, now I know where it leads, but I don't know if I'd ever walk up that path and go that way, because that's a very steep route up. Yeah, the way that I went, you've got to walk to, which is probably a 10-minute walk from where we came out, or maybe less, more than 5 though. Probably 10, because you've got to walk up those stairs. So to get from there, walk to those stairs that we went up to, steps, is probably 10 minutes. And yeah, the route is probably longer, but it's not as steep. Yeah, there's some steep bits where you're going quite high uphill, like uphill, steepish hill. But I'd rather do that route than go up that really thin path on the edge of what looks like almost a mountain. I mean, it's not a mountain, but it's like it's got a steep drop on the side and it's very narrow. So I'd rather do the route that we did than go up that steep slope that she sometimes tries to take me up. But it did eventually answer the question of where that steep slope goes, where she tries to take me up. Not every time we pass, but probably quite a few times, especially around that time she was trying to take me up there a lot. So that's where it leads. Now I'm hoping that one day I get down there and do the walk and have time to do a 2-hour walk, because I think that day it was 1 hour and 40, and I think if I had 2 hours I'd be able to explore a bit more. And also obviously I did double back and it added 5 minutes on. I think one day when I've got enough time, we're going to do that walk and I'm going to enjoy it a bit more, even though she'd probably just drag me anyway. And then I'm going to go to the right just to see where it comes out, because it did look like it was going to come out somewhere where there was no trees. I don't know. But it was a little bit freaky for me that day, being in all those trees for ages and not knowing where I was. But like I said, I think a lot of it was to do with the dehydration and tiredness and stress that made me feel freaked out. Because I don't think I've ever been in like any woods or anything and felt freaked out. I don't know. I think the time I got most freaked out was when I didn't realise that those were behind me, and I kept walking thinking I'm getting further away, I'm never going to get back in time. And then the second time I felt a bit freaked out because I thought I was lost, because all I could see was trees, and I'm thinking like, where am I going to come out? I'm going steepishly downhill. Where am I going? But I knew I was heading the right direction when I was heading downhill. And that's what I mean, like I do have a good sense of direction, but I still felt freaked out because all I could see was trees, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm not going to get back in time. And that's what I was discussing in the video, and then it suddenly ended. I think I was walking along, and I think there was someone there, and I just stopped filming because I needed to get and meet my dad. And I think he actually beat me for once, because normally I turn up before him, and sometimes I'm waiting ages for him. Sometimes it's only a couple of minutes, but I think that's the first time that he's ever beaten me when we've been meeting. Or was that the day that I got out early and I carried on walking? Or was that the week before? I can't remember, and I literally just edited that video. But anyway, that might have been the day where he actually beat me, but I can't remember. Because remember, as I was walking and I was about 2 minutes away from him, he texted me asking me if we were meeting in such and such a place. Or was that the week before? Oh, that was the week before, when I practically had to run. And I was a couple of minutes late. I think I was 3 minutes late. And he texted me and he's like, are we meeting here? Because earlier in the conversation, I said, should we meet such and such a place, because I'm probably going to get there quicker and I might not make it to the other place in time. And he said, oh, well, as long as you're here by such and such a time, we're fine. And he'd gotten there and I weren't there for the first time ever. And he texted me and he was like, are we meeting here? Because, like I said the week before, earlier on in the conversation, I had said we might have to meet such and such a place because I might not make it back in time. And then he was like, oh, I prefer to meet at the other place, where we'd previously arranged to meet. So that's when I was like walking faster than ever, and every time the dog stopped to sniff, I let her sniff for a couple of seconds, then I was moving her on, because sometimes she will sniff something for a minute, and we didn't even have time for the small sniffs that she was doing. But yeah, that's the end of the story, really. I'm pretty sure that day, did I go and meet him? Did I get out early and go and meet him somewhere further away? Because I didn't want to stop walking. I can't remember. And I only filmed the other part. I only edited the other part, like, earlier. Last night. Was it last night? Because I watched it through today. And then I uploaded it. So yeah, that's it. And it's took me half an hour to get to this point. I mean, currently it's on 33 minutes 16, 17. But as you know, I'll probably edit it down. Hopefully I'll edit it down to 25 minutes. And if you watch it all, well done. But I do keep forgetting to film for this channel, because most days I just post everywhere else, put this channel. But because they're like, you know, they're not on public, I can just post whatever I want without thinking about it. But on that note, I am going to end it here. Don't forget to subscribe. I hope you're having a great day. I don't know when this is going up. Is it going up in August or September? I don't know where I am in videos, because these type of videos are going to be weekly, because I always forget to film. If you know, you know. All I'm going to say is it begins with O, and hopefully it's going to happen. But I hope you have a great day, and thank you for watching.